Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host from In Heights Sites, Nathan Heights. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.
What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Unofficial Steelers Podcast. However, it's just me this time. Nathan won't be joining us. I hope everybody's having a good night. It's been a good week. You know, Pittsburgh Steelers won. They won big this past week against the Las Vegas. Almost said Los Angeles there. The Las Vegas Raiders, when they end up winning 32-13. A game where, in my opinion, I think, the defense obviously played their part. There was some special team splash, quite a bit of splash throughout the entire game. I think that's what was the story of the game. That was, I know the Steelers put up over 30 points, but, yes, they did it. Yes, they got in the end zone, but it was like with the help of the defense and the splash. And when it was them going the entire distance of the field, especially through the air, it was not an impressive game. And so I predicted this well before this game against the Raiders. I stated last week, and if you watch if you guys watch Steel Curtain Network, I'm also a podcast host there. I do a show on Mondays that are live at about 9 o'clock Eastern, and it's called The Hangover. It's me and Shana White. And then on Saturdays, on the audio only, so if you find your audio podcast, go search up State of the Steelers, and you'll see me on Saturdays around 11 a.m. So you can go check that out. I predicted that Russell Wilson was going to be the starter for a while. It was certain things that was being said, and not even certain things that were being said. It was the manner in which the offense was being done. So, for instance, I feel like the offense that was being put out there, the play calls were designed for a backup quarterback. It was designed for protecting, the ball, being super conservative, and, not beating yourself in those situations. Like, for instance, I think that the Steelers knew, or Tomlin also knew, that with this defense, they're going to be in a lot of games, and they're going to win a lot of games because they're going to keep it close and keep it there. But one thing they cannot do is shoot themselves in the foot by committing turnovers. And so, with that being said, I think that, that's what they were doing. I think that was the game plan. And as the game was going on, I was talking to my family. And at the end of the game, when it was, time for the game to go down, and we started to see all the backups starting to take place. I called it. I said, hey, if all these backups are in here, if Justin Fields is in here, I think that's because he's also a backup. You have a moment to put in Russ now, and if you don't, I think you're saving him for the next week. And sure enough, Mike Tomlin had his press conference yesterday, and he talked about the quarterback position. He talked about how both quarterbacks are going to have an opportunity this week, and that they were going to assess Russell Wilson. But in my opinion, there was quite a bit more to that. There was some statements where he says, I think it was when they asked him if Justin Fields could see the field on Sunday, or both quarterbacks could see the field on Sunday, he said absolutely. That there was a time, or there was a situation where it could have been seen last week. And so what that told me was that interception that he got called back, for the late hit there, that if that doesn't get called back, I think he's getting benched. And I think that's the way Russell Wilson is coming out on the field. Because the Steelers had the game in hand, Russell Wilson didn't come out on the field. There was a point in the game where it was close. Russell Wilson didn't come out on the field. So in what world would it have been where Russell Wilson would have came out on the field? It didn't seem like, unless he was talking about injury, but I don't think that's where he's going with that. The only time you would have seen Russell Wilson in the game last week is if the team was behind and they needed a spark. And so, to me, I saw it coming. I thought this was going to happen, and it was confirmed today by Broderick Jones and others that it was Russell Wilson taking the ones, Justin Fields with the number twos. Now, is it possible that Justin takes the ones tomorrow? Maybe, but I think right now isn't the time to, you know, what's a good word to say without being obscene? Screw it, dicking around. You know, there's no time for that. You know what I mean? It's time for, like, if Russ is your guy and this is the guy that you wanted to be your starter, the guy that's been listed as a starter for the entire season on the depth chart, then let's continue this throughout the entire week. Let's get him prepared and ready and prepared for this week's game, similar to like what happened last week with Russell Wilson. With Russell Wilson, he didn't take practice with the ones or anything last week. They prepared Justin Fields. And so just like they prepared Justin Fields in that manner last week, let's see what Russ got. Things are about to get tougher in the next couple. We have this game against New York Jets, then the next game against the Giants, then there's the bye week. And then that's when the schedule starts to get a little bit tougher. And so you want to have the quarterback that you intend to run with and ride this out, be ready to rock and roll by then. I don't think you want to ease him in and then have him go out there, have a bad game, and then there be questions and then controversy. No, let's not do that. Let's not play around. Let's just, let's just utilize him if that's what it's going to be. Now, I understand the competitive advantage by not going out there and saying that Russell Wilson's the starter right now. I get that, but like I've also said, it's not what the Steelers say. It's what they do. They've said a lot of things. And if we always believed what they were saying, it would have been Kenny Pickett versus Mason Rudolph this year as far as who the quarterbacks were going to be. And so you watch what they do, not what they say. If Russ is the starting quarterback for the entire practice week, then that's going to be the starting quarterback for the season. I don't think that they're going to go away from him. I think they're going to give him a lot longer of a leash than they were anticipating on giving Justin Fields or any other quarterback. I think that the only way that Fields would have kept his job this weekend or going into this week, he would have had to have had an amazing game throwing the ball, getting in the team in the right positions. And so that didn't happen to me. I predicted that it was going to be Russ. Now, I'm not saying that Russ is going to go out there and light it up or anything like that. I don't think so. Not in this game. I think they're going to, ease him in a little bit in this game. Maybe not throw everything at him. But one thing I noticed when it came to Justin Fields is, like I said, the game plan, to me, it seemed like a backup quarterback trying not to lose a game. And so for me, I think that there's the possibility of opening up this offense. And what gives me hope with Russell Wilson is Ryan Tannehill. And why I say that is because Ryan Tannehill was the older quarterback coming into Tennessee with Arthur Smith, who had a, not really done well in his career, and he resurrected his career there. Now, Russell Wilson, he's had himself a career. He's been proven. Now, as of recent years, maybe not so much. I think last year's year was pretty solid, in my opinion. I think it was 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. I think that's nothing to joke around about. I don't think you get lucky that many times. You know what I'm saying? There takes some skill for that. And so with that being said, I think that we might be able to see this offense open up, and I think we might be able to see actually what this offense can do. And maybe perhaps by doing so, we might actually see the George Pickens more involved, Pat Freiermuth also more involved, maybe even the receivers who are running open. If you watch the all 22, there's receivers open. There's some times where there's not, but there's more than enough times where there's a receiver open and Justin Fields is just not hitting it. And and then this last week the accuracy was not good. Now, if it was because of the pressure of Russell Wilson being the backup quarterback, I mean, he's a professional. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you're going to hurt his confidence. You're going to break him by benching him." I mean, he's a professional pro athlete. These are men. I'm sure if he can't handle, sitting down because a potential walking Hall of Fame quarterback could take over and open up this offense. I mean, he's not going to be able to handle the pressure when other things happen. So he needs to be able to handle those things. I don't think that's the case. So that's more directed to those that are arguing that this is going to break him somehow. I don't think so. I think he's tougher than that. I want to say thank you, Malibu. Does it becoming a newest member? Appreciate you, my man. Thank you. And so, and now what are the common questions that are coming out right now when it comes to the switch? I think that the biggest concern is Russell Wilson going to be able to do some of the things that Justin Fields did with his legs? And obviously, no. I mean, I don't think that's going to be anywhere near the case. I've watched some video. There's been some, YouTube videos out there of Russell Wilson running around, and he's running around. I wouldn't say he looks fast or anything like that. I wouldn't say he's trying to be fast either. So maybe perhaps, in the real situation, not just drills, he probably would be moving with a little bit more pep in his step. But does he need to run as many times? Because here's the thing, when it comes to Justin Fields, he was the most blitz quarterback than any other quarterback in the league, I think, for the last couple of years, maybe longer. And the reason they do it is because he struggled against the blitz. And until you figure it out, they're going to continue to do so, mainly because of his turnovers. Now, this year, he's been pretty lucky that he hasn't had many more turnovers, because the ball has been fumbled onto the ground multiple occasions with him being involved, including this past weekend when he threw a bullet to Jalen Warren backwards, like 5 feet away from him. And that one almost turned into a huge play for the Raiders. And so I don't want to pile on about him. I just think that he needs some more developing. He's 25. He's fairly young. He can be the future. I don't see it. I'll be honest with you. The throwing isn't very accurate, and that's my biggest concern. But, I think he can be a good number 2. He can go in there in a pinch. He can also bring in a certain skill set when it comes to certain type of packages, and I think in spurts he can be very, very well. He does have his moments where he's hitting receivers downfield, and he had some moments earlier this season where he was very decisive, but I think we're seeing more the ceiling than the floor. And the problem is we need to get that floor a little bit higher before the trust can come in. You know what I'm saying? So let's see. So Justin Fields, most blitz quarterback in a few years now. I don't think that's going to be the same thing that happens with Russell Wilson. I just see that with his knowledge of the game, the way he can, look at what's going on in front of him. If he can prove that he's still able to dissect the blitz, or can handle the blitz, he's also a guy that's also been sacked quite a bit in his career. So I'm not saying he's not gonna be blitzed. I just don't think he's gonna be blitzed as often as Justin Fields. But when they do blitz, if he can show that he can beat that, then it's gonna stop happening. And this is going to affect the offense in a great way, in more ways, because instead of having the box, filled in, having everybody just breaking down, coming in, because they know that it's very few and far in between times when the ball is going to go deep down the field. They're setting up real close to the box. And that's affecting Najee's game. That's affecting the running backs and any short game that you want to implement, whether it's screens or jet sweeps or runs, anything in those nature. It's being affected because of the way the defenses are preparing for the offense, because there's no fear of a deep threat. Russell Wilson he can throw the ball deep. If there's one thing that is the ability to throw the ball deep with quite a bit of accuracy. And I think that more than anything will probably help not just the offense, not just the offensive line from being blitz, which Zach Frazier is already out for this game. It's been reported he's going to be out for next week's game. That the earliest that he could be seen would be after the bye, which is huge. I mean, that's a huge blow to the Steelers. In comes McCollum, and I thought he played well last week, but you know, the defense for the Las Vegas Raiders weren't anticipating, you know, Frazier not being in there. So they probably didn't practice a lot of stunts or blitzes into the middle of the offensive line where he was going to be occupied. They were probably targeting more Broderick Jones, as we saw him struggle again. I mean, there was one play I think everybody saw where I don't know what he was doing, you know, and the defense and the special teams were amazing in this game. I don't want to, you know, say that this team stinks or anything like that. Just the offensive side isn't up to par. And I think Mike Tomlin even brought that up in his press conference when he said, don't, you know, he's been good. The offense has been good, but don't confuse good with great. And with what they want to do in order to accomplish the goal, this team needs to play great. Now, I'm not saying that Russell Wilson's that guy that's going to be playing great. I hope he is. I sincerely do. And I think he gives this team the best opportunity to win, mainly because of the trust factor. I think they trust him more, and I think they're going to open up the playbook. And so, all righty. No, you're fine, buddy. See you later. Anywho. So, like I said, I think that this is why he may give the offense the best chance to win. But the offensive line is injured. I mean, McCollum is going to be starting. Broderick Jones has struggled. You know, I think McCormick has played well. I think him paired with Zach Frazier, they've done well. But I think now, you know, the Jets defense is probably going to target the center position. I can see that being, I mean, clear as day. I think everybody knows that. I think he knows that as a center, filling in that for the next two games, they're going to be targeting the center of the field. And we're going to see then if, you know, how he's going to handle that situation. Russell Wilson he better be able to move. I'm not saying that he has to run as fast as Justin Fields, but he better be able to move a little bit or process pretty quickly, because if not, we're going to end up seeing Justin Fields back out on the field, and not for a good reason. Adnan says that McCollum did better than she expected. I agree. Let's see. I'm going through a couple of these questions real quick. If Justin Fields played like Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, it would be his team, but he didn't. Folks can wish and want it, but the tape is there. I agree with you, you know, and I wanted Justin to take over this, because I felt that if he, you know, did well, there's a brighter future with him than Russ. Russ is already towards the end of his career. You know, Justin Fields has, you know, the tangibles, you know, the ability to throw the ball everywhere, the speed, the physical attributes, you know, it's just the accuracy isn't there. And I think it's not so much that he can't process defense. I think he was very intelligent. I think he had the highest grade in the IQ test for the quarterbacks, that Wonderluck test. He ended up getting the highest grade in that from everybody. I think he had like a 140. Just kind of comparison, Kenny Pickett had 17. So big difference, very intelligent person. What I think he lacks is confidence that he's making the right decision or something. Because I mean, there are some throws that are question marks. Like there was one against the Cowboys, I believe, where he chucked it out to the right, and it was towards Van Jefferson, who was double covered. And you had your receivers where the play probably was designed to go. There's been a couple of quarterbacks who have broken down the play and have broken down how those type of routes are intended. And I think it was like 2 or 3 of them that said he should have been looking the other way, which you had 2 receivers open, George Pickens and Calvin Austin. So those type of mistakes concerning the accuracy is an issue. Uh, but hey, I mean, he's only been away from Chicago less than a year. I think the Steelers, he did well enough for the Steelers to re-sign him as a backup role with a backup um, paid salary, in my opinion. I think the Steelers, if they turned, to him next year as the starter, oh no, I'm not sure. And I don't think the Steelers would, just based on the way they act. And like I said, watch what they do, not what they say. And the way they're acting is as if he's a QB2. So that's where I'm at on that. Coming back, though, a huge game this is coming back is going to be Alex Highsmith. He's predicted to be back. I think he was a limited participant, but he was gearing up. It's been reported by himself that he's eyeing this game against the Jets as a return. And we get to see him back there. I think Jeremiah Moon did okay. I think he was a better special teams player than an outside linebacker, but he had his moments. My bigger concern is the running game. I mean, the Jets have Bryce Hall, and obviously going to run to the side of Moon or whoever. If it wasn't Alex Highsmith has he has ability to stop the edge there for the running game, and that's huge. I mean, you can't get past it. I mean, if you don't have that, you're going to have what we've been seeing, which is a bunch of runs to the left side of the line and a lot of successful runs as well. Let's see. Athens says, well, the line hold up for us, that's my biggest worry. That's a concern, as I mentioned. I just think that there were moments in that game last week, one where he made a run, he ended up getting a first down, but he had Calvin Austin streaking on a slant right in front of him. He makes that throw and catch. And is he going to get hit? Maybe. But he makes that throw and he catches that. He's going distance. Ain't nobody going to catch him. And it was open in the direction that he was running. He didn't. He pulled it down. He ran. He ended up getting a first down. It was a successful play. I'm not going to complain about it. But if he hits that, do you think defenses are going to start reacting a little bit differently? Do you think they're going to continue to play the same style, continue to be aggressive, continue to blitz him? If he can beat it. They're not. They're going to back up. They're going to anticipate those things, and they're going to make him, hit tighter windows and those type of things that you do when you respect the quarterback and his ability. And so it's not even just the Steelers who have questioned his ability. It's also the opposing teams. They don't respect his ability to throw the ball based on how they pressure him. And he hasn't been able to beat it yet. And so I think that Russ going in there might push back those defenses a little bit. Like I said, he is one of the most sacked quarterbacks as well. He does hold on to the ball quite a bit. But his sacks are because of that, holding on to the ball quite a bit for the most part. I think in Denver, his first year in Denver, it was pretty bad, but they had a really bad offensive line, which, here we are. But a lot of his sacks have been because he's holding on to the ball for quite a while. Let's see. PQ and JP said he still got it. Well, according to was it Tony Tony can't think of his last name, former coach of the Indianapolis Colts and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can say his name, it's not coming out right. And what Tony said was that he went to practice for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and when he was practicing with the twos on the scout team against the ones, so the scout team that he was playing with is against the ones. And the reason what they're doing out there is mimicking what the opposite team could do when they see certain formations, down in distance, et cetera, based on tendency and personnel. And so basically what they're saying is like, hey, when this team is in a 3rd and long, These are the plays that they've ran the most, and this is how they ran. And if the defense shows a certain look, this is usually how they run these plays. And in doing so, he was apparently picking apart the Steelers defense. So there was no pressure on him. He wasn't getting hit, things of that nature. So, there's that aspect of it. But he was doing something that I don't think we heard many times that Justin Fields was doing, and that might be one of the reasons why they say he still has it. And like I said, maybe getting the receivers and a specific receiver involved probably changes the dynamic of his play as well. And it shouldn't be that way. He needs to be more. He should be more mature and play like he's trying to be a lights out wide receiver, regardless of who's playing the quarterback or if he's a target or not. And I think last week when they did that play at the end, when they tried to get him the ball, I asked Shannon White, I said, when have you ever seen Mike Tomlin try to run up the score to appease a certain player? I've never seen it. I've never seen it. When it got into time where they can run out the clock and or just knee it, that's what they've done. And in this situation, that wasn't the case. Now, I like the aggression, don't get me wrong. I prefer more points. I'm not complaining. But the aesthetics of it, the way it looks, as far as when you really look at it and think about it, this is something that is out of character for Mike Tomlin. How much of a problem has George Pickens been? And winning and, cures everything. And I think if the Pittsburgh Steelers go in and start winning games with more, because they won games. They were 4-2, but, convincingly, maybe not have to depend so much on splash plays. I think maybe perhaps, we're going to see some players get back into it and play at their fullest, kind of like last season. George Pickens was upset, visually upset. There was so many times where he was throwing himself on the ground when he didn't get the ball thrown his way, when Kenny Pickett looked somewhere else and he was wide open, like really wide open. Multiple times where it appeared he was going to get the ball. There was one on a slant against the Vegas Raiders last year where Kenny Pickett stares him down on a slant and he has his guy beat by like 2 yards. He throws it and catch. He's gone for the distance. And Kenny's looking at him. Kenny pulls back like he's going to make the throw. And then he panics and circles around, and there was nobody near him. He didn't have any defender. He could have made that throw. He felt the pressure of a ghost. Turned around. He still made a completion on the play. Ended up hitting Calvin Austin down the sideline there for a first down. But again, that play could have been so much more had he done the way it was designed. That was his first look, and he didn't make it. Pickens was upset, and he was visibly upset throughout the entire year until Mason Rudolph became the quarterback. At that point, we saw a different George Pickens. There was a game where he wasn't targeted at all, and yet he was out there celebrating with his team. He was blocking. He was doing things because he knew that they were winning the way they should. He had a quarterback. Things were moving in the right direction. My opinion, the stage got too big in the wild card, and that's why they lost to the Buffalo Bills. And, a bunch of, young players, never been there kind of, players on the field, bunch of 2-3 year players, rookies, and Mason Rudolph. And, I think they end up beating themselves pretty good there. But I digress. Not trying to go back too far in the past. But, yeah, I think Russ has it still. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions kind of tells you that you got it. Robert says, Russ put some air under those deep throws. Pickens will be able to go up and get those. Fields throws the ball hard with very little arch, which means the pass has to be almost perfect. I agree with you. There was a pass against Calvin Austin this past weekend where if he puts a little bit of air on it, lets him run underneath of it, that's a touchdown too. But I don't want to harp too much on Fields. He did an okay job. He won 4 games. He lost 2 games that we probably would have. A lot of people would have predicted that he would have won. That Dallas game, and seeing how badly they played, and how badly they got beat by Detroit. they had a lot of players hurt and injured for the Steelers game too, and they weren't 100%, and they just got the doors blown off of them. Justin Fields struggled in that. I mean, struggled a little bit. I think he did okay, but there was some struggles there. I think the last game was the worst game, but the Colts game, he played well, in the second half. But that was one of the things too. Like I haven't seen a complete game from him. And the stats don't lie. He's pretty comparable when it comes to the passing stats with Kenny Pickett, and I think that was the case last season too. Outside of the turnovers, I think that obviously Justin Fields had more, but that's where the comparison was. Let's see. If the Steelers were 6-0, it would be very hard for Mike Tomlin to take out Justin Fields. I mean, maybe. The two games that they lost, they could have won. Let's just say they ended up doing that. They ended up winning those two games. Let's just say the defense comes in and on that last couple plays there before the end of the game, when Roberts knocks out the ball and it's a fumble, and let's just say Killebrew's right there and he picks it up. The Steelers win. There was no time left. They were up by 3. If they end up not beating themselves in Indianapolis and take the lead there at the end as well, let's just say they won those games. It doesn't change how poor that he's looked in recent games. You know what I mean? So I do think it would be difficult. It'd probably be a little bit more, a little harder than it is. I think at that point, you got to let, if he would have won 6 games in a row, I would have expected them to open up the playbook and allow him to utilize the entire field and utilize the entire playbook and not play him as a second string quarterback. And if they did that, would the turnovers be higher? Would they not? I don't know. I wish they would have done that so we would know, because it's going to leave a question mark on the entire year. Because if Russ goes in there and he's okay, the Steelers are averaging, let's just say 20 points a game, 21 points a game. I think that's where they're at right now. If that doesn't move the needle, we also have to take into effect the teams that they'll be playing in the next few games. But I can see there being controversy. I can see, the fan base divided. And I think Russ is going to have to go out there and really perform that way. That doesn't happen. But I think it would be difficult. But I think that would have forced the hand for the Steelers to open it up. And then at that point, it would be sink or swim. And if he did well, then I think he would have won the job. If he didn't, when they opened it up and it became turnovers, I don't think so. Like I said earlier in the show, that Mike Tomlin said in his press conference that when asked, is there a possibility that we can see Justin Fields or their packages out there for both quarterbacks to be playing? And he said that situation could have happened last week. Well, it didn't happen. The Steelers blew out the other team. So it wasn't in a situation where there was a blowout and the team was away from them. There wasn't a situation where the game was, the only way I think you would have seen him is if the game was either really close, which at that point, I don't know. I mean, if you're barely winning, do you really want to mess with that, with what you have? If it's let's just say if it's like, 24-24 at that time. Now, if it's 12-12 and it's all field goals, maybe you probably pull the trigger there. But the only time I think that you would have seen Russell Wilson in this last game was if he would have played poorly. And I felt that if that interception would have stayed, that he would have gotten benched at halftime and we would have seen Russell Wilson then. And I think that's what Coach T meant by that as well. Let's see. Okay, one trick pony. Let's see. I'll answer some of y'all's questions and comments. That test doesn't equate to football. Stroud had a low score, but he has no problems making quick and wise choices for the football field. That's true. There are such things as bad takers. However, when you look at those that did have a low score with those that had the high score, the higher score were the Patrick Mahomes. I think he had like a 120 something. Brock Purdy was like in the 130s. You had who else? I think I think Peyton Manning was one of the, Ben Roethlisberger was at a 27. Uh, but I think that those quarterbacks like Stroud, they're kind of the gunslinger type, right? They're going to throw it all over the field. They're not afraid of getting it in a bad position. They're just they have full confidence in their ability to squeeze in a ball. Confidence goes a long way. You can be smart. You can understand where you're supposed to go with the ball. But if you're not confident and you're hesitant, especially in the NFL where the speed is really, really quick, it's going to pass you. So confidence goes a long way. Not taking anything against Stroud. I think he's done really, really well. In fact, I had done a fantasy football, or not a fantasy, I did a mock draft the year he was drafted with a bunch of other podcasters who represented other teams. And I got in Carolina. I was the first pick. That was my choice. I mean, not my choice. It was what was given to me. I had Carolina. I had the Steelers since, I was a Steelers podcast, but they didn't have one for Carolina. There was a few teams that didn't have one. So some of us took up, multiple spots. So I had Carolina and I had the Steelers. I said he's probably going to draft Bryce Young, but that's a mistake. You need to go with CJ Stroud. And I said, and they're like, nah. And I was like, I'm telling you, CJ Stroud's a better quarterback. And that's what ended up happening. I'm not a psychic or anything like that. I just, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm just saying that based on what I could see from him and throwing the ball and his confidence, he looked like a confident quarterback. And that goes a long way. It really does. Let's see. Coach Dungy, there we go. I couldn't say it. I had it in my mind, but I had to read it to say it. I wanted to add an extra D somewhere in there. It was just not working. I apologize. Tony Dungy. Yeah. It's true. I just, it slipped my mind. It was bothering me too. Let's see. The fan base is divided right now between Russ and Justin. And I think so too. And I think a lot of it has to do is we really haven't seen Russ. If Russ performs well, I don't think that's going to be a situation long term. If he doesn't do or he doesn't move the needle from where they're at, I think there's going to be, questions. The Steelers are always full of drama every year. There's always. I think I told Shannon this should be like the days of our lives of the football team of the NFL because every single year there's drama in this team. This year we have the wide receivers with their drama. We have, the quarterback controversy, so much that's going on, the injuries that are going on. And we have HBO Max coming over doing their stuff in the next couple of weeks, which I will be tuning in and watching, by the way. I'm looking forward to. That's the first time I've ever seen, I'll ever be watching, that Hard Knock stuff. But I'm interested in seeing it. Robert says Fields did some good things, and the Steelers are 4-2, but the media has been overwhelmingly in favor of Fields and negative towards Russell Wilson. They both seem like great guys. I agree. There's been a little bit of biases towards Fields, and I think it's because he's winning, and a lot of the mainstream media don't look at the plays. They don't look at they look at some of the stats. Hey, he's responsible for 10 touchdowns and only 2 turnovers or 3 turnovers. Still in good. Only 1 interception. So they don't even count the fumbles. So they'll say he's responsible for 10 touchdowns. Not just saying how many are passing or how many rushing. And when it comes to his turnovers, they limit it just to the interceptions. They don't talk about the fumbles. So they say he's 10-1. They look at the record, 4-2. And he won the last game. They look at the fact that it was 32-13. He must have been responsible for it. And so when they just look at stats, not really watch the game, that's the product you end up seeing. But I agree. I think Russ was recently at the Children's Hospital, doing some things for some kids that are in an unfavorable position, trying to help out the community. He's been part of the community, and um, that guy that could run for mayor at some point if he continues to stay and do the work that he's doing in the community outside on off the field. So that type of player, my opinion. Let's see. There are several issues. Fields has to see wide receivers open before throwing. He has no anticipation. Folks were saying receivers weren't getting separation, but the all 22 says a different story. One of my biggest things about Justin Fields that is apparent when it comes to the stats, I know I just talked about him, but when it comes to the stats, is no yards after catch for the wide receivers. And I remember the play where he hit it was Calvin Austin deep down the field on post, and Calvin ended up taking it all the way. Even the commentator said when they were talking back is that he sits Calvin Austin in the hole, and he said, you really don't do that, but it works in this situation. The intention of that is to hit him in stride so that he can continue to run to make a touchdown. Fortunately, Calvin Austin is just a cheetah, and he can just pick it up and go as fast as he can and really quick. His acceleration and burst is extremely quick. And he was able to outrun. I think he ended up getting caught from the behind by one player. And that, I think that had a lot to do with him having to stop on his route to catch the ball. I've noticed that in a few places in a few games where the receivers aren't having the option for yards after catch. And I'm not saying it's always, but it happens, more frequent than I would like. Let's see. The team has won 4 games. 3 TD. Let's see what Russ can do and take it from there. That's what I'm saying too. I mean, at the end of the day, if Russ can't do it, you want to know now. You don't want to throw him in when the games really, really count. I'm not saying that these games don't count, but what games are going to be the ones that hurt you the most if you lose? The divisional games. Because the first goal is to win the division. Then it's the conference. Obviously, you want to take the win here against the Jets, and if you're going to drop a game, it'd be against the New York Giants because they're an NFC team. But you want to see what you have. You may even want to do 2 games. All right, give him the benefit of the doubt. Have him go out there on one game, see if there's any rust, and then, go out the next game. And if at that point, you have the bye week, you can make a decision if you want to go back and forth or not. And I don't understand why people say, oh, you can't do that. These are professionals. Mason Rudolph got knocked out, got benched, I don't know how many times, never really given an opportunity. And when he went out there in the field, he did well. If you have confidence in yourself, you go a long way. It goes a long way. Let's see. Athens says Russ goes to the Children's every Tuesday. Some people say that it's fake, but you can't fake going to the Children's place once a week. I mean, maybe if you did it once a month, you do it for an Instagram story or for some media stuff. I didn't even know about it being every Tuesday. So that tells you he's not doing it for the publicity or anything like that. He's doing it to bring some cheer to some of these kids that aren't in the greatest of positions currently. Yeah, it says a lot about who he is. I was excited. I'll be honest with you. When he first came to Pittsburgh or right before he was acquired, I was not the most thrilled person. And I would have said early on that I didn't want him to be the quarterback. I really didn't. I thought he was older, and I thought he didn't play well in Denver. Then I went back and actually started to watch some of the plays. I went back and started to watch some of the games, especially when they got Fields. And there was that one game where they were going back and forth that the Broncos end up winning. I went and looked at the game where he beat Patrick Mahomes, and I think he still has it. I mean, I think he was around a place where they didn't have confidence in him. And like I said, confidence goes a long way. And Sean Payton didn't have confidence in him. Neither did the guy before him, Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, they rolled out the red carpet for him, did everything they wanted, but in reality, they wanted Aaron Rodgers. That was the whole point of bringing Hackett there. And so, I just think he wasn't putting himself in a favorable position. I think now with Arthur Smith and the way that they want to run the ball and utilize play action, which he's very good at, I think this could be a pretty good offense. We'll see what happens. Can't say that this is a playoff winning caliber offense. We've got to check it out this week. Now, one last thing I wanted to discuss before we call it a show is who are the Steelers going to get at the wide receiver position, or do they even need one? I think this game might tell a lot. If they end up needing a receiver or not, I think they're going to utilize Russ and see if he can get the ball to these guys. I think at that point, if they're still struggling to do so, they might end up going out there. But when it comes to it, they lost out on Devontae Adams. Adams will be there in Acrisure Stadium on Sunday night, but playing for the Jets. The Jets on their own, that's like, I'm surprised he wanted to go there. I mean, I get it. He wants to be with his buddy, Aaron Rodgers, yada, yada, yada. They probably talked into making bukus of money in the future somehow. Well, anyways, but he's going to a place that's 2-3. And if the Steelers go handle business, they'll be 2-4. And a guy that's with a quarterback that's diminishing in his abilities, they just fired their head coach. And everybody thinks that the reason why they fired their head coach was because of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers ended up throwing his receiver under the bus, saying that he was the one responsible for an interception that Aaron Rodgers threw like 10 yards too short. Now, Aaron Rodgers says, hey, he ran the wrong route. He should have been up the red line. It didn't matter. If he was at the red line, you were going to be even shorter, to be honest with you. What he claims is that he saw him where he was at, and when he was already in throwing motion. And so he turned the ball a little bit and ended up going where it went, which ended up being intercepted. But I've seen many quarterbacks that are in mid-throw see something, and they do what is called grounding the ball, which is you throw it real short where nobody else can get it, and in an area where nobody else can get it, just down, past the line of scrimmage. It's a ground ball. I mean, there's been a couple of times where it's been shown on film where quarterback is throwing the ball in mid-motion, and they see the person and they chuck it downward so that way it doesn't get intercepted. He saw it. He said he saw it before he let go of the ball. So he could have easily, threw it harder towards the ground, maybe even get a intentional grounding, but it beats getting the turnover at that point. So, I don't know. Good luck, buddy. But a lot of the players that they have also are older. This reminds me of like, it worked out for Tom, but Tom Brady, when he went to the Buccaneers, he ended up getting all his players that he used to play with back on his team. And the difference is Tom Brady won multiple Super Bowls. Aaron Rodgers won one, and it was against the Steelers. But, man, if it weren't for Mendenhall, that Steelers already should have 7. But it is what it is. I don't know. I think the Steelers are going to do well this weekend against the Jets. My biggest worry is probably like a Beanie Bishop. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to, pick on him. Alex Highsmith's position they're going to run towards. Steelers haven't been great against the run. They've done their part. They've come up big in times when they needed it, like TJ Watt hitting the ball out last week a couple of times. But, these past couple of weeks, offenses have been able to move the ball around. And so hopefully with Alex Highsmith back, maybe they'll be able to apply a little bit more pressure. I'm hoping to see a little bit more of the blitz. That was kind of missing out of this team, in the last couple of weeks, especially when they went in against like Flacco or even Aiden McConnell. I would have expected him to get blitz significantly more and have more of, more sacks. I think they only had 1 for Cam Hayward. It was, not not so much pressure, but I think a lot had to do with Alex Highsmith. Well, let's see. And the Bucks were on Hard Knocks when Brady was there. Yeah. I love seeing Derek and JJ's tweet when TJ had a big play. Yeah. So who can they get though? Let's just say they do need it. Mike Williams for the Jets is somebody that has been rumored. He was the guy that was thrown the ball to that we were talking about that got intercepted. He was a guy that came from the Chargers. The Steelers were looking at him in the offseason. They wanted to sign him as a receiver to the team. He ended up going to New York first. He was going to fly to Pittsburgh next. New York ended up signing him there, not giving the Steelers the option. So is it possible that the Steelers could end up with Mike Williams? Possible. I mean, he ended up not going into work today. So he was a no-show at New York at practice. So maybe there's something already in the works. I don't know if a team would trade him right before playing the team they're trading him to. That would be crazy. Like, I don't know. Now, he's one guy. There's D Hopkins. He's another guy. But if I was the Steelers, I think I'd rather go for Calvin Ridley, to be honest with you, instead of D Hopkins. They've been utilizing D Hopkins a little bit more than Calvin Ridley, but I think I like Calvin. But I think you can end up getting one of those two guys, either Calvin Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins. Let's see. OBJ, I think, isn't he with the Dolphins? Or did he sign with the Dolphins? I don't know what happened to him. Maybe I'm wrong. Is he a free agent? No, he's with the Dolphins. Yeah. I don't think he's played much this year, but yeah, he's with the Dolphins. The Steelers were in rumors for Tyreek Hill. That would be crazy too. That had populated, and then like a couple days later, or the next day, Tyreek had put a post on his Twitter saying, "Hearing trade rumors" or something like that intrigued me, something to that nature. Let's see, Cooper Kupp, but he's prone injury. Yeah, that's the one problem too. I don't know. I don't really think there's much options there. Maybe John Mechie. He's buried on the Houston Texans depth chart. He was a former second-round pick, I believe, out of Alabama. Physical guy. He ended up having leukemia, which he's survived from that. Congratulations to him. I know it'd be tough. I mean, we all saw with James Conner. He was also another person that overcame leukemia, and so tough man there to do so. And he came back in the league, but he's just buried. There's so many good, talented wide receivers there. I don't think he's even seen the field much this year. So he would be a guy that I would be interested in for him. But Thielen, I think he tore something. He had an injury. I think he's out for the year, to be honest with you. Let's see. But he would have been good. He ended up, let me see. What was the injury? Maybe it wasn't too bad, but I'm pretty sure it was, let's see. Oh, maybe not. Maybe he's already healthy. As I'm seeing, there's a potential Adam Thielen trade destination. Oh, it was just a severe hamstring. I thought it was worse than that. I thought he tore something. I thought it was a torn hamstring, which, those hamstrings, the severe ones, you can be out for a while, at least about 7-8 weeks. This happened back in September 24th. So that's only about 3 weeks ago. I still say he'd have at least 5 to 6 weeks, maybe about 4 to 5 weeks left on that to be recovered out. But maybe he might be a person to watch. John Mechie's a good returner for them. Yeah, he can be. Hamstrings can linger too. Yeah, and he's also on the wrong side of 30. He's up there on age too. So, I don't know. I'd be cautious. It's a long season. I don't want to fall into the trap too. A bunch of old guys like like the Jets have. So um I would go for somebody young, maybe somebody big and physical, somebody who's fast. I said John Mitchell too because he was a physical receiver. He wasn't afraid to hit anybody, and so I think he'd fit well in the Arthur Smith offense. But that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please hit that like. Please hit that subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. I do plan on going live again this week before the game, probably on Saturday. At one point, and just to kind of preview the upcoming game, talk about the injury status, who's been picked up, who's not been picked up, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you are liking and subscribing and ringing that notification bell. Appreciate all you guys that have watched. Let's see you guys next time. Peace.